Trouble River by Betsy Byers, Chapter 5, Aground. Behind her, Dewey slept for almost an hour, and then he woke abruptly. It was the sound of the raft scraping against the rocky bottom of the river that awakened him. He stood up quickly, put his oar into the water, and felt for the bottom. He pushed against the rocks with all of his strength, and the raft moved forward a few inches. Then it stopped again. "Keep it moving, boy! A boat's like a wagon. You let it get stuck, it's stuck." "I'm trying." He put all his weight to the oar. His muscles ached with the effort, but the raft remained where it was. With a sigh, Dewey stepped from the raft into the cold, shallow water. "Where are you going?" "I gotta look around, Grandma." "Are we stuck?" "Yes'm." "I told you." With his lips held together tight, he waded around the raft, then toward the far bank of the river looking for deeper water. The river was wide here and shallow. He struggled back to the raft, wincing as the rocks cut his bare feet. "I didn't even think there was rocks in this here river," Grandma rumbled, "but you sure found them." "I think I can get us moving again. There's deeper water over there." "Well, let's get to it." He swallowed. His feet were cold. His pants were wet where he had stepped in a hole. His shoulders ached. He bent and tried to push the raft sideways. It was stuck fast. He moved to the front of the raft and pushed. Then he straightened and looked at his grandma. "Grandma," he said, "I reckon you're going to have to get off the raft." He could imagine the sharpness of her expression as she took in this request. There was a silence. "Get off," she said abruptly. "Yes'm, just till I can get the raft onto deeper water." She remained in her chair without moving. "It'll just be a little way," he said, hoping it was true. "And the water isn't deep here. You can just walk right over there to the bank." "When I got in this raft, I wasn't expecting to walk all the way to the Dargans," she grumbled. "I know, Grandma. I wasn't expecting this either." He put his hands on the front of the raft, and Charlie reached out and licked it. He scratched the dog's head and suddenly felt better. "Come on, Grandma." Slowly, stiffly, she rose from her chair. "It don't suit me to walk." "I know." He helped her step through the shallow water to the shore. On the bank she stood. She shook her wet skirt and dug her cane into the soft earth. She looked back to the raft where the dog sat watching them. "Things has come to a pretty pass when the dog rides and the old woman has to walk." Then she turned and began to make her way around the low trees, as upset as a hen turned out of her nest. Dewey hurried back to the raft. Without the weight of Grandma, it was now higher in the water, and he began to push it sideways across the river. It was not easy. Hampered by the darkness and by the fact that he was unfamiliar with this part of the river, he had to move slowly. Again and again, he had to walk back to the raft, move it forward to the deeper bank to find deeper water. He slipped, went down on his knees, and then struggled to get up to guide the raft again. After a while, he felt the water getting deeper, and he called, "Grandma, I think it's all right now." "I think so. I've done walked halfway to the Dargans." He paused. The moonlight was still bright enough that he could see her standing on the bank. She said impatiently, "Well, come on over here and get me." I don't think I can." "What?" "If I leave the raft, it's going to start going down the river, Grandma, and I can't bring it over there because the water's too shallow." "How am I supposed to get out there, boy?" He paused again, swallowed, and said in a cheerful voice, "Just wait on out, Grandma." She said nothing for a moment and then said, "I got the only cobbler-made shoes in this here family. I've had these shoes 5 years, and only I ain't going to have them no longer if I'm going to have to be jumping in and out of rivers all night, wading this way, wading that way." "A little water won't hurt your shoes," he said. "I wouldn't call this a little water," she grumbled. They stood for a moment looking at each other. Then slowly, jabbing her cane before her, she stepped into the stream. "In all my life," she said as she walked unevenly on the gravelly bar, "I ain't never been asked to do nothing like wade in my good shoes. Twice!" She stumbled, paused to regain her balance, then continued so slowly, Dewey could not tell whether she was moving or standing still. "Nobody has no respect for an old woman these days. Wait on out here, Grandma. Get off the raft and walk, Grandma. Next thing it'll be get out and push, Grandma." With hesitant steps, she made her way to the raft, and Dewey stepped down to help her on board. "There," he said when she was back on the raft. "Yes, there," she mimicked. "There is a pair of ruined shoes. There is a pair of $5 shoes that has walked 1,000 miles without losing their shine, and now they're ruined." Already the raft was beginning to move forward again. Quickly, Dewey climbed aboard and stood up his oar. "Well, I tell you one more thing," she muttered. "I ain't walking no more. We can get stuck in this mud, and I'm sitting. We can get stuck on those rocks, and I'm sitting. I'm sitting. You hear me, boy?" "Yes'm." He sat down on the raft with the oar across his lap. He wanted to relax, to sleep again, but his hands were gripping the oar tightly, waiting for the next crisis. His whole body felt stiff in his wet, mud-encrusted clothes as he huddled behind his grandma, looking from one bank to the other. The raft continued on its way slowly, evenly, but still Dewey did not relax. The stars faded and the moon disappeared, and the thin light of dawn began to show the riverbanks, higher now, as sharp as they had been cut away with an axe. Sometimes, just before sunrise on the prairie, Dewey felt as if he were the only person in the world. There was a hush, a silence, a time when nothing moved. Now, as he trailed his oar in the dark, silent water, he felt more alone than ever. He turned to look at the sun, huge and red, begin to rise like a flower coming up from the ground in full bloom. Well, his grandma said, it's morning. Yes'm, it's morning. And look at that dog, will ya? She snapped. In the darkness, Charlie had found the softness of the bundle and had curled on top of it. That's our food he's sleeping on. Yes'm. Get off, Charlie. Charlie opened his eyes and wriggled more firmly into the bundle. Charlie, get off now. Get off. He prodded the dog with his foot. Slowly, Charlie unwound himself and stepped onto the bare raft, but his eyes, rolled to the side, were on the bundle, and after a moment he crawled back onto it and slept again.